Okay. Well, hi, I'm Catherine. I'm here with EarReality. I'm a writer and storytelling coach for them, and I'm very excited that you're here. Interactive audio stories are really cool. They've been something that I've been doing for a while now, and I'm really excited that you're interested in learning more about them. We're here to help foster the gaming community and the writing community right now, and I hope you enjoy this webinar and get more interested in learning more about them. If you're here, you're likely familiar with interactive fiction, choose your own adventure novels, pen and paper, tabletop RPGs, video games, visual interactive novels, and more. Our stories are just like that, except the one key difference is that they are unique audio experiences, like listening to your favorite audiobook, but you or your players drive the story by making choices through the use of voice recognition software on your favorite device. But you're here as writers. So why are interactive audio stories an exciting and worthwhile way to get your stories out into the world? Interactive audio stories are a fantastic way to reach a new audience you may be missing out on. An audio experience differs from all other game mediums out there today. It's really a truly innovative format for RPGs and more. Audio offers a hands-free and off-screen gaming experience, something that's lacking in a lot of other gaming formats. Audio narration and voice recognition allow players to listen to a story and interact by talking to their device. This hugely opens up the accessibility of gaming. Users can play while driving, running on a treadmill, which is what I do, or when taking a break from screens. I know I very much appreciate giving my eyes a break after working at my computer all day long. Audio-based games, they also provide an alternative gaming experience for visually impaired individuals or others who would benefit from hands-free off-screen gaming. Interactive audio stories are niche, definitely, but it's one with a potential that is growing fast. Low competition means you can get a head start on success, like Disney knocked on our doors in 2019 to ask us to create an interactive audio story for their Toy Story franchise. No one else was doing this at the time, so we stood out and caught their eye. Audio stories also present a unique, fun alternative to text-based RPGs. Both formats use words to tell a narrative. However, whether you're creating a new game to ship or a portfolio piece, audio stories are a standout alternative that will set your game apart from the crowd to both players and recruiters. This can be especially helpful if your goal is to create a new game with limited resources or as a solo project. Writers can invent worlds and spin stories through words, but can truly bring them to life by harnessing voice narration, as well as integrating sound effects or music to enhance the atmosphere. So from a writer's standpoint, another big draw for writing audio games is because of their short format. If you're tired of starting writing projects and never finishing them, then this is one story that you can quickly accomplish for publication or use for your portfolio. That's because players of interactive audio stories prefer to play in 20 to 40-minute sessions as opposed to sinking 5 hours into a video game or binge watching a show. If a user wants to play longer, of course, they can choose a multi-episode story, which is also possible, like if they're on a long road trip, for example. So that playtime equates to only about 4,000 to 5,000 words being needed for one story. This audio format is also an efficient way to finish your project. It's easy to write and design your game with our game engine Twist, which we'll discuss more about that in a moment. But first, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. We are a market-leading, award-winning company specializing in gamified audiobooks and immersive interactive experiences. We've written interactive fiction for Disney, Audible, B&W, and more. We back up our expertise with our author's guide, How to Write Interactive Audio Stories for Voice, which is the only book of its kind. We are also a team of dedicated and passionate individuals who love crafting interactive stories and exploring new ways to offer them to the world. So, how do we get our stories out there to players? Our app is Twist Tales. It's an interactive audio story portal offering seamless distribution across mobile apps, websites, Amazon Alexa, Discord, and more. I encourage you to check out our Twist Tales mobile apps for iOS and Android, or you can visit our website at twist-tales.com after this webinar. So how are these stories created? By using our Twist game engine. You may have heard a lot about this. Twist merges the magic of storytelling with the thrill of interactivity. There's no coding or programming knowledge required, which is great for me. And it's a browser-based application with a visual interface. So it's really easy to access and jump into, even without prior gaming engine experience. When I was a beginner, I learned to use its most basic functions within an hour and its higher level capabilities in no time. It is really intuitive and can be used to design either basic narratives or really intricate ones with as many branches and variables as needed to tell your story. It offers exciting gameplay mechanics like narrative branching, variables, hidden continuations to challenge your players, and more. It also offers seamless integration with various platforms, including distribution to Amazon Alexa, mobile apps, and websites. There is also a library of 700 AI voices that you can use to bring your game to life during the prototyping stage. Since these are, after all, audio stories, it helps to hear them read aloud while you're writing. This is in beta testing, so this is a feature that isn't quite available yet. Overall, Twist is really a perfect workflow for prototyping, testing, production, and publishing. A fantastic tool to get your story done. So now I'm going to actually jump into Twist so you can see for yourselves how it works. I've created a short demo story to take you through the basics. Okay, so this is Twist. This is a basic demo story that I created, and it's the story of Snow White, which I hope we're all familiar with. So basically, very short story. Twist can do much more complicated stories, but we're going to stick to the basics for now. And let me show you this. We call these a shape, the little boxes. So you can create a shape by, let me zoom in for you guys. There we go. Okay. So if you see I hover over a shape, we've got these different options. There's a circle, little diamond, boxes, arrows, different options. So I started with a circle, which is the beginning of the story. And I drew an arrow using this to get to the first shape. So once you create a shape, you can click on it and it brings up this field, which you can use for a lot of different things. The most important is your story itself, which you would type in this text field. For Snow White, I started it off as the very basic story of you're a beautiful young princess named Snow White. Your father, the king, died when you were young, so you were raised by your evil-hearted stepmother. The queen, obsessed with her own beauty, orders a huntsman to kill you. You escaped into the forest, but you are now face to face with the huntsman. He seems hesitant to kill you. Now, the normal story, the huntsman releases Snow White. This story, we are giving the option to the player of either persuading him to release you or fighting the huntsman. So we have done that by creating more arrows. But here we have, if you can see, maybe you can't, where it says option list. Now you can see the little gray box shows up. And this, we can choose a one-way, an option list, or a yes or no. For this box, I chose an option list, which is often what you're going to be picking because that's how you get your players to be able to choose what choice they want to make. So to start off, we always number the boxes. And this is so when we export the script to a voice actor, they'll be able to see the general narrative direction of the story. So it'll make more sense to them. They can act it out better, that sort of thing. And so I labeled here in the name field 001, and then I put start. So every time we create a box, we're going to do that. But back to the option list, in the continuations field here, I wrote the options that I gave the player. Release, because we're convincing the huntsman to release Snow White, or persuade, because we asked them to persuade him to release you is a choice. So basically, since this is writing for voice, we want to make sure that people have enough synonyms or suggestions for what they might say in case they don't say something that's exactly phrased like how we phrased it. And so I put both release and persuade here. For the second option, we always put a dash there, a little hyphen in between. And then we'll put the second choice. For this, we only have 2 choices. Mostly, you're going to want to just have no more than 4 choices per options, because most people listening are not going to be able to hear a whole rambling list of options and remember all of them before they pick. So no more than 4. This one's got 2. There's also a reprompt field where I put the question again, because if somebody doesn't answer right away, or if they take a long time to answer or say something that doesn't make sense at all, then the voice will re-say the prompt and they'll get to try again. So all that being said, if we choose for the huntsman to release Snow White, we labeled the continuation or the shape as 001A. This one down here is 001B because we're trying to make life easier for the voice actor. But here we have the text, and basically Snow White is persuading the huntsman to let her go. The huntsman's face softens, he nods. I cannot bear to kill you, run away, and I will tell the queen I did my duty. But here, take my knife to protect yourself should you need it. You can see that this shape now has a dashed line around it, its border, and that is because I added a variable to this box. And I did that by clicking variables up here, and you can create a new variable. I created a variable that I wrote knife and set to. You've got options to set to, decrease by, increase by, random number between 1 and you can put in a number, and that's so that you can score keep, or you can have dice rolls or things like that, which can really make a game interesting. But we did set to, and I picked 1 so that later I can make that knife that the huntsman gave Snow White, it might matter later in the story. So that's all I did there. I saved that variable. Now, if Snow White fights the huntsman instead, the huntsman gets angry because you kick him or whatever I wrote, throw a rock at the huntsman, and before he can attack, you race into the trees and successfully escape. Either way, I led these 2 choices back to this shape. This one shows that Snow White hears some voices in the woods. And I then gave the option to approach the dwarves, which in the traditional story, Snow White meets the dwarves in the forest, or the player could leave the dwarves and start a whole new story. So I wrote in the text box, you don't know who to trust, best to keep moving. As you walk, the forest grows dark. All right, so I'm going to delete this, what happens in the forest, and we're going to say, well, the player is Snow White, so I'm going to say, you come across a river. It looks fast and dangerous. And we're going to give the player a choice. So we'll ask the player, do you cross here? Or we're just going to phrase this head downstream. And I'm just keeping this very simple for this demonstration, but it could be more complicated depending on your story. So right now this is automatically set to a one-way arrow, but we want to give this an option list. So I click option list, and then you can see this continuations box came up. And so since we picked cross here or head downstream, we're going to put cross here, and then the hyphen, and I'm going to put head downstream because I'm not positive what people are going to say. I'm also going to put downstream. well, okay, I'm not going to put down river, and this is a good point to point out that if I put down river, it's possible that people might choose the first option and phrase cross at the river or cross the river here or something like that. And so we don't want to put river at all because that could apply to both choices just in case. So we're going to leave it at that. I'm going to have a reprompt as well. We're going to just copy paste this question into the reprompt field. Every once in a while, Twist doesn't immediately do the options, but there they are, they popped up. Okay, so all we have to do now, this is really easy. We take an arrow and we just, we take a shape and we put it there. And Twist automatically puts the first option cross here to this arrow. It applies it to this shape. And when we do the next one, it does the same thing and applies the second option. So I love that about it. It's really easy. And now we're going to name these new fields, these new shapes. Since this is 002B and we're providing two new choices, I'm going to label the first one 002B01. And we'll put cross here. I'm going to do a similar thing with this one. I'm going to label it 002B02. And this is for the voice actor. And this is going to be downstream. Now it's the fun part. We get to put what happens if Snow White crosses. So we're just going to say, let's see, you try to cross the river, but the rapids sweep you down a waterfall. I don't know. You could put anything here, but we're going to do that. So obviously this is a bad thing. Maybe if they headed downstream, it could be a good thing. You head downstream to find a safer place to cross. You safely cross the river. So yay, player did a good thing. Here I'm going to actually add a consequence. Try to cross the river, the rapids sweep you down a waterfall. You are now lost in the woods. So from this point on, because this has deviated from the traditional story of Snow White, we could do anything. You have lots of options. You can make your story however complex or simple as you want. For this demonstration, I'm going to simply lead these two back to the main story so that we can move on with the demonstration. So I'm taking an arrow from here, and I built this, it's this empty bridge box, which is simply what it says. It's a bridge, but I could have brought this to straight to here. I just wanted to make sure everything functioned for this demo because I didn't know what you guys were going to suggest. So we're going to bring both of these to the bridge. All right. And a good way to bring a story, to keep your story from branching out to infinity, is to have your choices that lead to an interesting branch, but then you can bring the story back to whatever narrative you ultimately want to tell. And so I brought this story back to where one bleak day you meet an old woman. She offers you an apple. This is the evil queen in disguise. She says, "My orchard produced far more apples this season than I can eat. Would you like one?" In the original story, Snow White says yes. And here to point out, instead of a continuation being instead of the options list here, I chose the yes or no option. And that's because Twist has a built-in feature where you can select yes or no, and it's already set up where that's all you have to do. You don't have to do the continuations by hand. So if Snow White says yes, then she eats the poisoned apple, feels woozy, the world goes black. And as you can see, I have got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different endings on this story. You don't have to have 5 endings. You could have more, you could have less, but I have 5. So it's a little complex to try to figure out the best way to demonstrate this to you. But here I have built a gateway, and that was just, it's one of these options, and it's a little diamond. So the gateway allows us to have the first arrow you draw from a gateway is the else arrow or default arrow. And this is what happens regardless of any variables, any continuations you may have set before. This is the path it will take. So I set up in this box where Snow White decided to leave the dwarves, I set up a variable, kind of like I showed you earlier with the knife with the huntsman, which I'll show you in a second too. But leave dwarves is set to 1. And because I set that variable, it will help affect this ending, because if Snow White chose to leave the dwarves, then she never met the dwarves in the story. And so if she eats the apple, falls to the poison, then in this version, she meets the prince, he kisses her, wakes her up like in the story, happy ending, but the dwarves are not present when that happens. If she had picked the dwarves earlier and decided to meet them and hang out with them, then in this default setting, she is woken up by the prince, but the dwarves are there. Similarly, where I set the knife variable with the huntsman, Snow White has a knife. So no matter what she chose, whether she met the dwarves or left the dwarves, she has this knife. I placed 2 conditions on this instead of just 1, like the leave dwarves condition. It is possible to have multiple conditions. So with this one, this is if she chose to leave the dwarves. So the dwarves are not there for this fight, but she does have the knife. So leave dwarves equals 1 and the knife equals 1. You could also do or, there are a lot of different ways you could tell your story, but here we put and, because if Snow White says no to the apple, she does not have the dwarves, but she does have the knife. It says you may be alone, but you have the knife that the huntsman gave you to protect yourself. The battle against the queen is epic, but in the end, you stab her in the heart and prevail. So that shows continuations and variables. These endings they're fun. I showed you the 2 prince ones. If she says no to the apple, the default way is she fights the queen. The dwarves help because she met the dwarves. Everybody's happy. The 2 conditions, like I just said, she has the knife, but there are no dwarves, but she still fights the queen and wins. This is the worst ending, where she left the dwarves, but she also does not have the knife. So you run away from the evil queen. You've escaped her for now, but you fear she will never stop hunting you. You must continue to live alone in the forest. One optional thing is that you can add save points to your story. You don't have to. You can make it a really difficult thing and your player might die and, they can just, that's the ending they get. But if you want to be nice and give them a save point to return to somewhere early in the story and try again, then that's why this is orange, an orange border. You can do that by, let me show you where I put the save point, is this other orange shape. So to create the original save point, I clicked save points up here and I activated it with this checkbox. I gave a caption, which is just to help direct me. It's just, you can put whatever you want, but I put meet dwarves. because at this point, if you get the worst ending, then I say, you have reached the worst ending. Would you like to return to your encounter with the dwarves, or would you like to end this story? And so we gave them an option list like before, but we put in this save point, and it says jump back possible here from here to, and there's our save point we created. And so that means that if they say yes, they want to return to the encounter with the dwarves, then there they go. They'll be at the dwarves. They can meet the dwarves instead and maybe get a better ending. So these are the very basic features. You can create a perfectly awesome story with these basic features if that's all you want to do. You can at any point play your story by choosing this play icon, and it opens up this text field that's where you, in little buttons, you can play your story. So here is our intro to it. You can choose to persuade the huntsman to release you or to fight. We can choose fight. And this is the path if you fight. You know, it takes you through the whole story. You can approach the dwarves or leave. If we do leave, then here is the story we built. You come across a river, it looks fast and dangerous. Do you cross here or head downstream? So if we head downstream, you head downstream to find a safer place to cross. You safely cross the river. And then it goes, like I showed you, to the apple offer. One bleak day, you meet an old woman. She offers you an apple. So that's how it works. That's how you can test. There is, once you add in voices, then this could be audio. You could push play and hear the voice playing the story. And that will also help you test out if there's anything wrong with your story, like technically if something's broken and you need to fix it. There's also a really handy feature is Google Sheets that it can link to. And there are all the text fields so that you can export that or download that. And it can be a great way to save your work too, just to have it all in one document like that. So, okay, that is the end of my presentation. All right, thank you. Have a good night.